So what I want to do is I want to create an oil pressure gauge that can actually be seen when you're riding the bike. So right now in these old Hondas, all you have is like an idiot light where once you drop below a certain oil pressure, it turns red. That's better than nothing, but ideally we'd be able to actually monitor what our real oil pressure is. So I built this little proof of concept a long time ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, for when I rebuild one of these motors. I remove this bottom oil galley plug right here. I screw this in. It's literally just another one of these caps drilled and tapped with an old oil pressure gauge kind of screwed into it. And it just sits in there and it lets me actually read, okay, do we have 40, 45, 50 pounds of oil pressure? Make sure all that's good. And then I had just been putting this back and that's it. Today, I want to develop one that sits closer up here to the top of the engine. We'll kind of play around with exactly where it's going to go based on kind of where my line of sight is when I'm on the bike so that I can actually monitor oil pressure while we're riding. So these are the components I'm going to use just for kind of a rough draft or a first go at it. I have my modified plug drilled and tapped with an 1/8 NPT thread. That is going to go to an adapter I got that's 1/8 NTP on one side and 3 AN on the other side. So that'll screw in like that. We'll go to a stainless steel 3 AN line. This one is 18 inches. On the final product, I'll probably go with something closer to 12. This is a little overkill, but it's one I had on hand. So that'll screw in there. This will go 90 degrees off of that. We then have a 3 AN to female 1/8 MPT, which is what's on the back of this old oil pressure gauge. Again, I'll buy a new, maybe slightly smaller version of this. I just want to make sure this is actually going to do what we want it to do first. So that's the components I'm going to try. I might end up replacing this plug. If I decide to make this an actual product to sell, I need to have products that are readily available, and these plugs just aren't available new anymore. So I do have something to try as like a version 2, but let's get all of this on the bike and then we'll start it up and see if it actually reads properly. First thing we're gonna do is just pop off this plug. It's just a 14 millimeter. Some oil is gonna come out of this. It shouldn't be all of the oil because it is higher than the oil pan, but there's always gonna be some residual oil in there. Let me see if it'll come off without me removing this timing cover. Nope. Okay, we're gonna remove the timing cover first. Now we can unscrew this the rest of the way. Okay, I don't need to wait for that to drain out all the way. So I'm just gonna go in with my OEM plug that we've already tapped. And these do have an O-ring on them. I'm gonna try later one that just uses like a flat washer. We're gonna see if that's enough to seal, but for now this should seal like OEM. These are aluminum, so make sure you don't go too crazy tight. First adapter, like that. Again, these threads are going to be pretty easy to strip, so I just need it to be tight enough to be sealing, but not pull the threads out. Throw that down there. Our AN line. Throw this other adapter on our gauge. Connect to this side. I'm not going to worry about mounting this for now. We'll worry about that later on. Okay, in theory, everything should be tight enough. So I'm going to wipe this oil off so that when we start the bike, we can see if anything's leaking. Assuming it's not leaking, we'll see what our gauge reads. You can see we actually have just under 60 pounds of oil pressure. Perfect. So despite our small leak, the gauge is doing exactly what we want. I just wanted to double check that this is a good position to actually check oil pressure from. I knew it was pressurized, but I wanted to make sure it was going to get the full reading. So now that we confirmed all of this works, I want to try a different plug real quick. I got the plug set up in the mill. Luckily, with how this is machined from the factory, I can very clearly see where the center point is. So I'm just going to use a center drill. We're going to kind of tap, get us a little bit started. Then we can go in with our letter Q drill, which is the tap size for 1/8 NPT. And the last step is we're going to use my little spring follower to keep our tap nice and square with everything. Like that. And NPT threads are kind of weird because they're tapered. So you can't really like run this all the way through. Okay. We'll blow that out with compressed air. Should be ready to try it. Got it all put back together with our new plug. We're gonna fire it up. Give us another test. Reading nice, like 58 to 60 pounds of oil pressure. No drips. So here's the final design of the prototype. I got a new 1.5" diameter gauge. I think that fits the scale of the bike a little bit better. Made just kind of a 90-degree bracket off of the intake manifold bolt right there. I think that's going to be a perfect mounting spot. It puts this gauge just on the inside of your right knee. Very easy to see while you're riding the bike. Doesn't stick out, doesn't get in the way. You're not going to hit your knee on it or anything like that. So that's perfect. Scale of the gauge is perfect. This line is still the 18-inch line. 12-inch will be able to curve just behind here and be a lot cleaner than this. So this is not the final product. The plug and everything, all of that's working great. So the only thing I still want to research some more is a different gauge that's more of a standalone kind of pod style gauge, if you know what I mean by that. This gauge is really designed to be like mounted in a dash or in some kind of panel where you don't see the back of it. I want to see if I can source a reasonably priced, good quality, 1.5" diameter oil pressure gauge that has kind of a finished back to it, ideally with like a mounting bracket as well. We'll have to figure that out. But as a proof of concept, this gets us where we want to be. Let me jump up on the bike and see if I can get you an angle of exactly how it would look while you're riding. Sitting on the bike in normal riding position, you can see, boom, I can just look right over, see it, but you know, hitting the brake, anything like that, never gonna be in the way. It's just on the inside of the cylinder. All that's good. I'll go ahead and turn the engine over. You can see the reading. Nice and clear. I did get a fluid-filled gauge as well, so it'll kind of dampen some of that vibration of being mounted on the engine, but that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Let me know in the comments below if you guys would be interested in something like this for your bike. It should work on the 4-cylinder Hondas 350, 400, 500, and 550s. The 750s have the same plug, but it's up here and it's higher. They actually have some aftermarket solutions for oil pressure gauges on the 750s already. I don't think anybody makes them for the smaller bikes. I could be wrong. I didn't bother looking because I wanted to make one for myself. So if you'd be interested in a more polished version of this, let me know. For now, I'm gonna keep looking for that pod style gauge. I'm gonna order a 12-inch line because I plan on running this on this bike forever. The beauty of this is it's way more peace of mind that you have good oil pressure on your bike as opposed to just waiting for that idiot light to come on. Because if that bulb burns out, you'll never know you have low oil pressure until your engine locks up. This, I can, a couple of times a ride, peek down, look at it. When I first start the engine cold, I can make sure we have good oil pressure before I even turn on the ignition. All of that is why you put a real gauge on the bike instead of just waiting for a light to pop on and tell you it's too late. So let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in one. For now, I think that's gonna do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching as always, and I'll see you on the next one.